Welcome everyone to a Friday edition or usual edition of the Upstream Marketing Community Meeting under SIG Contributor Experience. We all work under the same code of conduct, so be excellent to each other. Thanks for joining today. I, I recognize all the names here. Slada, nice to have you back, man. And Josh, nice to see you as well. The rest have become the regular crew, which is pretty wonderful. Yay, DST time zone, Piyush. I see that. It's feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make much of a difference, but still, sleep, getting free at 10:30 p.m. and getting free at 9:30 p.m. makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference. I underestimate an hour every time until that actually rolls around, and then I feel like a zombie for a week. Like, well, good. I'm glad it's working well for you. That makes me happy. Okay, cool. Our normal agenda, we kind of kick off. Has there been any big news, wins that we've seen in the community that we want to highlight? Nothing quite comes to mind off the top of my head. So cruising right along, campaigns in progress. We've got the contributor survey, which we have been diligently trying to up the numbers. And Josh, I imagine you added the 119 replies in there. That is a huge jump from Wednesday where there's 55. So my big question to you, are you excited about that? Or are you seeing the information kind of bend away from contributors to a more general audience?
Oh, I haven't checked that.
Okay.
I just logged in this morning to see what our count was and actually look at the answers.
Yeah, if you don't mind taking a peek, I want to make sure we're working
Getting the
hard
right
to,
people. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Give me just a second and I'll find
Yeah,
that out.
thank you. For others to catch up. So the contributor survey goes out every year. It's a big part of our feedback loop. And I think we noticed this year, I think the consensus is that people may not have responded because they're like, oh, I've seen these questions before. But tracking the delta over time is really important.
Well, if people are being honest, we're still getting contributors.
Heck yeah. Good.
So
I would like to, I'm going to default to people being honest in this case. I don't see the incentive of lying to a survey. Well, that's great. We did a little bit of tweeting, always with the caveat that we're really asking for contributors to respond. But I think the coolest thing, this was the first case where Rajula, he built this really incredible multi-channel Slack bot where you can send a single message across all the different channels in our Kubernetes. It's an incredibly powerful tool that you shouldn't use lightly or you drive everybody nuts. So this was the first actual use case of it that seemed right, and it looks like he sent it out today. So
okay, I just dropped a graph in there that has people's responses to how often do you contribute. So cool. Yeah, so unless people are putting us on, we are getting the right people.
That is a moment, like, we should all take a moment and be very thankful. That's awesome. It is hard to get people to respond to surveys, and yeah, it's used by ContribEx to do cool things. I wish Bob was here to tell you some of the wins, but in short, it's important. If you haven't done it yourself yet, you know what? If you've all, oops, I just deleted that. Sorry, man. Let me add the link. Survey. All right, the link is in the notes and in chat. If you want to half listen to me and fill out that survey or save it for after this, either way is good for me. It will definitely be helpful. Josh, what's your take? Is there anything we can do to continue to be helpful there? I know you're working hard to getting this out there to people. I think you're on mute if you're talking. Yeah.
I think we're approaching the maximum that we can expect in a time like this.
Great.
A lot of people are freaking out about a year of quarantine.
Yeah.
And are not necessarily up for doing any extra tasks. So yeah. I would be surprised if we were able to get over 150 responses total. Also, there's nothing new or controversial in this year's survey. Previous surveys have had questions that people actually cared about. This year pretty much just has the rote questions. And I think that's the other reason why we're seeing sort of lower numbers than we've seen the last 2 years.
That's a good little mental note. Even if it's a little manufactured, maybe we can add some drama around it next time.
There was something discussed, but in the end, the steering decided that they did not want it in the survey. So
I respect that. Yeah,
yep.
I think being kind to people's brains right now is important.
Yep.
Good. Well, hey, I just want to shout out to Joel one more time. I thought it was such a great idea. We definitely saw a bump in responses after the Twitter post saying like, hey, we're at this number. We're trying to get to that number. And that little framing of gamifying it a little and helping the team grow, it worked. So thank you for that suggestion. Really good call. Good. Okay. Well, one update talking about articles. We have quite a few in progress, so the agenda was getting pretty long. So took the time to reinstate the GitHub project. Since this group founded, we were very heavy on GitHub. We've since kind of pivoted to make sure that marketers and designers and people who aren't in GitHub all day don't feel obligated to know it. But what's great about projects is it's pretty lightweight, and we can add cards after each of this meeting's conversations and just keep it a little like a Trello board, if you will, of information flowing from left to right. So if you check out that project, I'll actually just take a moment, share the screen, make sure it's recorded. Hopefully not share too much junk. Okay, so if we check out the board, we go from on the far left, uncommitted ideas, just kind of things that have been floating around, we've been talking about, all the way to published. And in between, old habit, I go right to left because we're always trying to optimize for flow and get things to publication. So the two things in reviewer approved and a PR in progress. Chris's story of non-code contribution. It's not urgent. We're aiming to get that before KubeCon EU. And then the article on Michelle Nurali by Bart. I was able to work with Bart yesterday to get his Git configured so that he could open a pull request. And this is the painful part of the process for people newer to Git, is getting it into the repo. He really wants to learn it. If any of you on here don't want to learn it, well, there's at least 3 or 4 of us that are happy to do this for you. But since he wanted to learn, got him through, and he's working on that. Anything else in progress right now?
So, Matt, did you see that I PR'd against your fork for my?
Oh no.
Okay, so
yeah, let me pull that up.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know, like, Kubernetes GitHub always like throws me off. It throws me for a loop sometimes because you submitted, like, from your fork, a submission, a PR, right? And then I needed to make edits to it. So it's like, okay, where do I put the edits after I'm done? I was like, well, I'll push them to Matt's thing, and then Matt will go in and squash it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, basically, I open the pull request, and since you don't have write permissions to my branch on the pull request, the right thing to do is open a pull request against my repo. And this is why Git should not be considered trivial knowledge for participation.
Like
is that SOP for content management in Git? I'm deadly curious about this. Is that
like we need to come up with, I think, a standard, or like a better standard?
It's always been a square peg for me. A little square peg, round hole. It seems a little harsh for me to be like,
yeah, like that is like
the Matt stuff,
Like, it took me a good 10 minutes to like figure out which branch and fork and tree I needed to do, what to make this happen, right? Because GitHub is notoriously bad at telling you, like, this is where it came from, this is where it's going to, right? So like, it's very tiny print, like right underneath the label or whatever, the title of the page. So it's like, oh, this is Matt's fork. Okay, cool. So I need to make a fork of Matt's fork and commit to it, as opposed to a fork of contributor comms and PR to that.
But essentially agreed. So when somebody's doing content as a in Git, we essentially use their repo we all step on their repo, right? Like it's Matt's stuff and we
If Matt's
all
submitting the
edit.
PRs or whoever submits the PRs to the upstream repo, to the actual communications repo, they need to do it on whoever started the original post or the original PR, right? Like,
and they do it as a PR, and then we do PRs against their
PR against their fork, and
their
then
fork, right?
that gets pushed up into the community, hopefully.
Yeah. So
Clear as mud, Chris. Thank you.
what? No, this is actually you just pointed out.
It's highlighting a very, very, very like
It's complex.
non-obvious problem, right?
There's a complexity here, but I think you just gave me an idea of how to maybe simplify it a bit.
Okay.
That what if we consider part of our team to be, kind of, I don't know, the catchers of this stuff, like, and we'll open the PR, but we make sure people have write access to that repo so that they can push into it.
There you go.
And like we basically are consolidating the complexity by a few of us being the handlers that get stuff into the main repo. And I just was thinking about that. It's a very nascent idea.
Yeah, you might have this could be a better idea, Josh. I want to bounce it off you. Could we have like a draft repo or like a draft thing somewhere, maybe that we could all PR against all at once, kind of deal?
That's what branches are for.
Right. Yeah. But like the problem is that
we even have Netlify, which means you can actually view the results of branches.
Okay, so yeah. But the problem was in this case, the branch was not something I could PR against for some reason.
So what you do is you create a feature branch on the main repo and people PR into that feature branch.
But could that just be a long running like home for content creation?
Yeah, you can do it that way, or you can do it per, document, whatever works.
I think per document would be better. That way we don't have this constant backlog of documents in the Git repo, right? Like it should be very in and out, right?
Do I have the option? I forget if I have the option to squash. We don't need to do a full PR review here, but that's cool. Okay.
Also, I guess Git had the option of directly writing suggestions to the PR, right? So I guess the reviewers have that access. So you can, if you want to add a suggestion, you can directly do that.
So
and the PR, the person who opened the PR, they can just accept it.
And this is where like my knowledge of Git diverges from my knowledge of GitHub, which are two distinct things.
Right.
Like if I did that, clicking the suggestion and then adding new text, if I hit add single comment, you can then just one click merge that in as opposed to doing the whole PR review system.
Right. Like you don't have to open a PR, you can just accept it and it would be it.
A little bit more of the lightweight content review thing that us writers are used to, as opposed to the like, I am changing the code base.
That should be the voiceover whenever a PR is requested.
Yeah, whenever I send a PR, that's what's gonna come out of
But yeah, the suggestion tool, I'm with you 100%, PH. I think this is one of the best kindness for our type of cycle.
So the question I have so there's suggestions and then there's reviews, right? Or is that two different things? Is that the same thing?
You're correct. They're two different things.
Okay.
So suggestion could be a part of a review. You can put it back.
Yeah. So a review is like an official, it's kind of like a sign-off process where reviewers are requested and you're asked to sign off on something. Along the way in your review, you can click the suggest button on a block of text or code, and then in that snippet of the tilde or tick 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 suggestion, you can change that block that will show up to you, Chris, as an option to merge that suggestion in.
Yeah, these
if
were
it
not
was your
options to merge in.
Yeah.
That's
So when
where I
Bob
got
added
lost.
comments in here,
Mhm.
you had to do something else in order to get that merged in. But I think so. We've brought up a couple times, like, what is the path of least resistance, even if it's not the easiest yet? What is the path of least resistance to for our editorial flow? We haven't documented this. I don't know if the blog team already has something that we could work from, but there's definitely a gap here that we need somebody to fill with a recommended, like, well, first off, just document what we're doing, and then, like, let's iterate from what we're doing to what we could be doing. That would be a lot easier.
Yeah.
But yes, if you are in GitHub and you see something that you want to change, please use the suggest tool. It is such a kindness. And if
Side
that
note,
was
completely parenthetical, and maybe it's heresy to bring this up, but I recently was using Bitbucket to manage content, and it has a very nice like visual flow between versions. It's
Oh,
I'm just
wonderful.
saying that,
I've
and
always
now I'll
liked
be
I've liked
kicked out.
all the other services over GitHub, right? But GitHub is the most popular one for what it's worth, right?
Here we are in
Like,
the
here we
yeah.
are. You know?
Side note.
That is a fun parenthetical. I will update my heuristic of where Bitbucket fits in the market. Cool. All right. That was we went a little along the side, but we should add this as a new item, like documenting our writing process. We'll get to that further. But any other articles that people are working on that they want to get on the board, make sure that we're tracking them, and we'll just check in regularly. And this is just for personal accountability, and so that when you ask for help, somebody can tag in pretty easily.
I had claimed the Kubernetes by the number. Can I do that now?
Oh yeah. So I think one thing we do need to get you, Joel, we'll need to get you org membership so that you can start participating on this board directly. I think
Oh,
but I would be happy to do so. I have edit rights here, so happy to do so.
okay.
Anyways, by the number, what's your
Joe
Twitter,
Barker.
or what is it?
Joel Byron Barker. Sorry, Joel Byron Barker. That's me.
Yeah, the first version was tough to hear. Kubernetes by the numbers, Joel Byron Barker. Save note. And then yeah, there's you. So say, and I'll just drag it here. And then I was just gonna leave these evergreen topics. If something ever comes up where you wanted to do a roundup of ideas, how to use a feature, do a SIG spotlight. Ideally, we'll get to the point where there is documentation on what does it mean to take one of these ideas and write about it. But for now, just documenting stuff we had floating around into a little bit of more visual process.
Right. And I mean, thank you, Joel, for the comments on my contributor story. So I will put that in by next week. I should have a PR open and we can start putting in.
Of course, yeah.
videos.
I'm totally missing contributor stories. Wait, no, that's not your. What is your? It's no good that it doesn't auto prompt for completion of a user.
While you're typing, and I've been talking a lot, so I'm self-conscious about it, but I did want to say I'm really enjoying editing people's stuff.
Okay.
Feedback about editing is always very helpful. I can always be better at that and more contextual to the project. So if there's any critique of my critique, please don't be shy about that.
Very thoughtful. I definitely missed some more. Chris's PH mine. Sladin, I know we talked about it, so no obligation if nothing's happened on it. But I think you still have a very cool story of being a developer who wants to use this community to learn some marketing practices. Is that still something you might want to explore as an article, like writing a few paragraphs? Cool. We'll follow up. All right, y'all. Thank you. Got quite a bit in progress, and it's nice to have it visualized. Let's keep moving along. Are there any new requests? Yes, there is. Josh, take us away. Tell us about.
Okay. Probably people have seen the issue already. Last week in Kubernetes development is a newsletter that Noah Kantrowitz and I have been doing for the last 3 years, actually, which is kind of a scary thought. That summarizes what happened in mostly core Kubernetes development over the previous week. We are talking in general contributor experience about making it into a sub-project rather than having it be a completely independent thing. And people seem very positive to that. So I wanted to bring it to this meeting. I mean, what that would practically mean is moving it from the namespace it's currently in to Kubernetes SIGs. Realistically, nothing else would have to change. Obviously, Noah and I would love to have additional contributors to the newsletter. Like, for example, one of the things we have always wanted to do was add some coverage of sort of the close dependency projects, things like CSI, et cetera. And we've never had enough time to actually do that ourselves. But mostly it's just, to turn it into an official publication. Bob has also made noises about including a copy of it in the new contributor site.
Oh, nice.
As a way for contributors to keep up with what's going on, which is what we wrote it for in the first place. So, I don't know if we need to do anything other than that. If you all want to just +1 it, then we will take it to infra and handle the namespace transfer.
Great. Anyone have questions from what they heard, or?
Just out of curiosity, how are you producing it now, and would it be easy to make it available on the contributor site?
Given that it's currently a Jekyll site, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
What we would do is we would just pick up the stuff in the posts folder for the contributor site. Possibly add some additional metadata to them if Hugo needs that. I don't know if it does. And just do that. We don't want to take down the original site because it has a lot of subscribers now.
Right. Yeah. Like that was my concern.
One of the things actually for this group is that one of the things that we need to do, which is actually kind of pushing us to finally get this done, is so there's several mechanisms of distribution of LWKD. One of them is email. Right now we're using MailChimp, and we want to get off of MailChimp for very well-publicized reasons. So one of the things we'd be asking comms is if there's a preference for what email distribution mechanism we use instead.
I know CNCF uses MailChimp, so.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's something we haven't needed to have an official position because we haven't run a newsletter, but it's something I'd be happy to review the options on. I mean, there's some really cool ones for markdown only content these days.
Really? Okay. So that's another thing I wanted to ask, right? We got recommendations on a few that have, good terms and don't have MailChimp's problems. At this point, we'd actually be rather more inclined towards one where we paid a nominal fee. Because obviously, as MailChimp has showed us, if you're getting something for free, it's not really free. and don't have preferences, right? It's super simple, right? We've got markdown content that we're pasting into a newsletter. It's going out to a bunch of subscribers. We're not doing any tracking. So, you know, if I wanted to maintain a mail server, it's the kind of thing we could do in Mailman, but I do not want to maintain a mail server.
Thank you.
So
please don't.
Please don't.
We've all done enough
Yes,
mailman.
I have already had the 0-day exploit on the mail server experience, and I never ever want to repeat that.
No, thank you.
So,
so there's definitely a good newsletter option. You know, something it's worth just saying out loud. I don't know how complex it would be alternatives to Mailman that I really enjoy is actually Discourse. If you set up a Discourse channel, you have the option of making a mailing list as well.
That is already one of our distribution mechanisms.
Okay, cool.
It's already going through discuss.kubernetes, but we have 900 people who subscribe directly to the email newsletter. And we'd rather not lose that audience.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, all good. We're happy to. And then going forward, would you be down for doesn't have to be every meeting, but now and again coming here and just saying how we can support you, get the word out, grow, just so that we kind of have the sync points occasionally?
Yeah, every once in a while. I mean, this meeting is 8 a.m. my time on a Friday, so it won't be frequently.
Caslin relates.
Yeah.
You two are both incredible for being here.
It's worse. We got some people here from
I'm like, get out of here,
don't we? We got some people here from India
around the world.
Much worse time. This is a much worse time for them.
Actually half the meeting is from around the world. What do
Friday
Can I ask
morning is much better than Friday evening.
Can I ask a couple questions, Josh, about this? This is a couple times this has come up. One is, I've heard this at a couple other meetings. Are there any oppositions or anybody standing in the way of doing this? I mean,
nope.
Can we? Okay, so we should grease the rails.
No, it was basically, if you look at the issue, it was just please take it to the contributor comms meeting and get a +1.
Cool.
+1. And that was it.
Right. Yep. And then can you give us a sense of how much effort you put into the content creation so that we know what we're signing on for?
So Noah and I each probably put in, and this is only because we've gotten really used to doing it, so we're now fast. So at this point, it's probably about 2 hours a week each. A lot of which is reading all the merges from the previous week. When we first started, it was a lot more than that. I would say it was actually probably 4 or 5 hours on my part.
And that's from somebody who's pretty got his, thumb on the or finger on the pulse most of the time anyway. So you already kind of pretty. You would probably be one of the fastest.
I mean, I honestly, I started this back when I was the PR lead for release 1.9. And decided, it was silly to have only the release team aware of all the PRs that were coming in. So and so keeping up. We're not planning on stopping maintaining it. It was honestly more of, we've kicked around the idea of making it a sub project. We were waiting for the contributor site to go live. And then we were just waiting to get around to it, and this mailing list issue kind of pushed it, right? Because we're saying, hey, if we're actually going to be potentially paying a vendor for newsletter service, then maybe it's time to actually deal with getting it made into an official project thing.
Cool.
My last thing is more just an idea on this. God, I've been talking so much this meeting. I try to shut up, but if Josh and the people who are making that had access to the project thing, they could put unclaimed ideas in based on what's happening there that would inform what we're doing. I think you could really be an idea generator.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good writing opportunity for people who are having trouble working their way up to a full article. Because, like, for example, if somebody's covering what happened in CSI last week, what you really want for LWKD is basically like 3 to 5 lines. Rather than a full article. And so it can be good writing practice for people who are getting used to writing for publication.
Very cool. And Joel, keep asking questions. We're all learning from what you're saying.
I mean, it's an open project right now. We just have not gotten contributors.
Sure.
So we're hoping to some degree that making an official project will attract some occasional contributors.
Do you have
who
a
will add extra
contributing
content to it.
guide?
Hey, Sadin, what were you gonna add?
Yeah, no, I was actually going to say I do a bit of contributions on the release notes team, and
Yeah.
it kind of like so this kind of comes in line with like having looked at the release notes
Yes.
and maybe putting some in this kind
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah, you got a new contributor if you're looking for.
Yeah. And if you've seen me
Yeah.
posting to release this put PR really needs a release note, that's why. It's because I'm going through the list of PRs and saying, hey, this is an API change. This needs a release note.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, this is wonderful, Josh. You have our full support. I think it sounds like infra's got to do the heavy lifting here. So just keep us posted if we can help that along.
No, there's going to be a bunch of steps. First, we need to move over the thing with the namespace and everything else. And then I'm going to need to transfer the domain to the CNCF. All sort of the bits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in the meantime, it sounds like Sladen, why don't reach out to Josh and see how you can tag in and be part of this. I think
cool.
It's an
awesome.
excellent way for you to get involved.
Mhm.
Love it. Thank you, Josh. It's really exciting. Happy to be at a place where we can be a place for long-standing projects to hang out. That makes a lot of sense. Well, good. All right, moving right along. We mentioned a couple times the writing process, and I now realize this isn't a new idea, and it was documented 21 days ago, which is wonderful. Jason started an issue and a to-do list of, picking up the to-do list of our workflow in the Storyteller's Handbook. So there is a place to write that. If you have observed what we're doing with writing and want to just take some notes, you can do it right in this GitHub issue, or you could, if you're more comfortable with GitHub, you can pick it up and open the pull request. But just note that, there is a place for that, and I'll add that to our tracking board so we can see that easily. Excellent. All right, going into the back half of the meeting, we go into improvements. It gets more into the navel-gazing, how we're using GitHub and how we're keeping organized. If you're here for content and writing and want to drop, you're welcome to right now. That is no problem. But if not, I'm going to say you are hanging out for the meta conversation. One thing going around, we've had these longstanding GitHub issues around SIG profiling, which really cool way to have an excuse to reach out to SIGs, but it kind of hit a dead end. It hasn't gotten much further. A couple months ago, we talked about transitioning from a longstanding GitHub issue, it's been around for 2 years, to more of something that can work for an editorial flow. Thinking like a long living document where we can invite SIG members to add quotes about what they're working on, and then we can draft an article around that. We got I put together a very loose structure of it, the work in progress SIG profiling articles document. I want to gauge if that is still of interest to people, B, see if anybody wants to make more of it than I have, and then we can close that umbrella issue and start documenting a new process. Questions, because I don't know if that was clear at all, and or interest in SIG profiling, like having an excuse to reach out to SIGs.
What would do you have a sense of what the deliverable would be, the final content piece?
Yeah, in the Google Doc here, I documented what we talked about so far, and the goal, what I outlined as the goal is a table of contents of all the SIGs, with the intention of making it incredibly easy for SIGs to add quotes in their section and make it incredibly clear, like what to do from there. So, a V1 in my head might be, say you wanted to do a profile on SIG network and they have an H2 header that you can link to, and you could maybe the standard is like we comment on it saying like, hey, Joel is working on this article, please add notes under here. And then when you reach out to people in Slack, be like, hey, SIG Network, we want to talk about you. Here's a document where you can drop some notes and see if that works. I think that's the intention. Like, see if we can get to something to experiment with, because the process of putting a lot of effort on a writer to go and reach out to people and set up calls it hasn't resulted in many articles in the last year. So wanted to see if we can think of a lighter weight way of doing so.
Yeah, I'd like to help out with that.
Very cool. Okay. Thank you, Kunal. Great. I'll open a GitHub issue for this specifically and tag you in it.
I also have a call with Keslin next week for the Twitter thing. Yeah.
Oh, great.
On talking about how to do tweets and things like that, per what we were talking about last week.
Yep, last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Great. All right, kind of next up would be we maintain a Twitter bot for that very purpose. And I wanted to tag in Rajula. I saw like some things I hadn't responded to forever. I got a chance to wanted to check the issues on this project, bring the attention to it for people who are unfamiliar. And just gauge what next steps might be. So for those that don't come every week to this, the contributor tweet spot is a GitHub action that we have forked and set up in a way where when somebody adds a plain text file to this repository, they can, once it's merged, it will automatically tweet from the Kate's contributors Twitter handle. So pretty neat. It's under the Kubernetes SIG contributor tweets. I think it's explained quite well here, thanks to Kazan and Rajula. We've got one pull request longstanding from Karthikeyan that will make it so that people don't actually have to open a GitHub issue, but a GitHub pull request. They could do it through issues. That's still a little stuck. I actually haven't checked for an update.
I think Kartikeyan's family had a baby, so.
Oh, wow.
I think he's been out.
Very cool. Congratulations to them. Yeah, all good. It's such a really cool tool, and it's awesome that George is interested in using it for another project too. So he's helping it along. But yeah, just so people know what that pull request is. Separately, there are a few open issues. The first one that I want to just poke back at was this really cool, like if it's possible to embed cards into a GitHub issue, or sorry, when we add a URL to the tweet, can it expand it into a card like we see below?
I wanted to ask about your comment. Did you actually check it out? So even the website doesn't have the HTML tag. Was it working when you tweeted manually?
So
yeah, you're right that the celebration page I don't think was set up for it, but I feel like there's other pages I've linked to that didn't expand. I'll test it again. But Chris, what were you gonna say?
Maybe you can just list out the websites here so we can debug them.
Yeah, like it has to be a tag in the actual HTML page. So if it's not tagged, we would have to create it. So good stuff.
Okay. Will do. Yeah. Good. I just didn't want to leave you hanging there. This very minor. I was wondering if you can remove this generated by thing here, but it's probably not worth keeping around. Cool.
This issue needs to be followed up with the upstream repo, so I'll take a look probably sometime.
Yeah, and then auto PR when a new blog post came out. I don't think we. Yeah, I looked into a GitHub issue on this, or sorry, a GitHub action, and there wasn't an action that encapsulated this quite as well as I'd hoped. Where like upon new object on an RSS feed, it opens a pull request. So I got stuck there.
So the thing here is, even though we can fetch the RSS thing, we need something to run every day. Like we need to either pull the event or like understand there's a trigger when a new post comes up. So that's the deal here. We can figure that out. Probably if someone is interested, they can take it up.
Yeah. Yeah, this was the project that, or the moment where I realized that GitHub Actions are like not as simple as just like zaps for code. I was really hoping it would just be like a trivial connector between tools, and it's like, no, it's a way to run kind of complex software across repositories. But maybe one day. Do we have a help wanted tag in this repo? Not sure.
So for what it's worth, I during the ContribEx meeting this week, I tagged myself for Zapier helper. So
oh yeah,
that might become something we could use in the future. So, but I do have to run though. I have a live stream to go to. So good luck everybody with the rest of the meeting, and I'll see you next week.
See you, Chris. Have a good one. Good. All right. Thanks, Rajula. Appreciate us just checking in on that every few cycles here to make sure I'm getting answers to you, and as opposed to you having to hang out in there on your own. Good. All right. There are links at the bottom. I've already done the work of going through them and looking to see if there's any new open issues. But so I'll just open it up. What else is on people's minds?
I'm sorry, I just joined late, but the deadline for the survey is 21st. I want to understand where are we at, the number of responses?
Oh, sure, of course. We are up to 119.
That was today?
That's as of the beginning of this meeting. Josh looked it up. So we doubled since since the work you were doing.
Okay.
So yeah, great job, Rajula. Can you tell us, were you able to use the Slack bot across multiple channels to communicate that out? Did I see?
Yeah, it went out yesterday night. So I wanted to know if that had an impact, or should we extend the deadline and do more marketing? So that's the question.
Great question. Josh was mentioning that he didn't expect more than 150-ish responses just due to the lack of controversy in the questionnaire and the overall pandemic life. So I think with us getting that close to it, maybe we can do another push over the weekend, saying like, hey, we're about to close, but and get that last 30, 40 people. But yeah, I don't see a reason to extend now that we've jumped into 3 digits. I think if it was below, we would have said that's not enough. That's my impression. What are you feeling? Yeah.
Are you asking me?
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. And I was actually really happy to use the bot for the first time in all the channels. Yeah, so we can actually do more things probably. You can use that.
Good. Was there any pushback? Did people are like, hey, where did this message come from?
Last I checked, I didn't find anything. Probably it's hard to look at all the channels and check the replies. But there was one thing, I had to join each channel manually, add the bot, exit the channel. So I had to do that.
Oh no.
I at least remember all the channels in my head now. So yeah, it helps.
Oh wow. How many? There are 409 channels in our
We
Slack
didn't do all the
overall.
channels. We only did the main ones, the SIG and working groups and user groups.
Still, thank you for that. That is a ton of hops. Huh. Others have any questions or comments on that? Okay, anything else on people's minds related to upstream marketing? Going once. Cool. Thanks, everybody. That wraps up almost on time. And happy Friday.